Before we get started, just a few important housekeeping matters. We are really grateful tonight to be joined by two Spanish interpreters, Tracy Picardo and Jordan Marks. The interpretation will be offered throughout the entire meeting. If you're interested in accessing the meeting interpretation, in your meeting controls, click on the interpretation icon, which is the small globe, and click the Spanish language. Jordan, if you would, I'm sorry, Tracy, if you would, read those same instructions in Spanish, please.
Hi, yes, good evening, team. This is your Spanish interpreter, Tracy Pichardo. Hola, buenas noches. Esta es la intérprete de español, Tracy Pichardo. Ofrecemos interpretación en español durante esta junta. Para escoger el audio en inglés o en español, tendrás que escoger el botón de interpretación, en la cual tiene una imagen de un mundo, el imagen de un mundo. Después, por favor, escoger el idioma cual le gustaría oír. Muchas gracias. Thank you, team.
Great, thank you so much. Next slide. And as you were alerted a second ago, this virtual public meeting is being recorded. The MBTA may choose to retain and distribute the video, audio, and transcripts from this meeting. By your continued attendance, you consent to participate in this recorded event. If you're not comfortable being recorded, but you wish to stay, please turn off your camera and keep your microphone muted. Of course, you can always choose to excuse yourself from the meeting at any time. I am going to ask that everyone hold questions and comments till the end of the meeting, where we have a dedicated chunk of time for feedback. So we'll review all of the ways in which you can raise your hand or participate at that point. Next slide. We also have two ASL interpreters with us, Denise Martinez and Tom Latterman. To view their videos, find the interpreter's video in the gallery. In the top right corner of the interpreter's video, click the ellipses and then click the pin option. That will keep the interpreter on your screen throughout the entire duration of the meeting. Next slide. And finally, we also have our card captioner, Denise Gracia, with us tonight as well. To start viewing closed captioning, you can click on the closed caption icon, which is identified with that CC label at the bottom of your screen. If you're interested, you can also click and drag on the captioning window to move the captioning wherever you'd like on your screen. And if you're interested in customizing the size of the captioning, you can do so by going into the Start Video option at the bottom of your screen, clicking on the video settings, and then selecting accessibility. And within that menu, you'll see an option for adjusting captioning size. All right, and we also have staff dedicated to keeping an eye on the chat, not just for questions related to presentation topics, but also if you're having technical difficulty, please put a note in the chat and we will have someone get in touch with you to help resolve. All right, and then one key note on our commitment to diversity and civil rights. All MBTA activities, including public meetings, are free of discrimination. The MBTA complies with all federal and state civil rights requirements, preventing discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, disability, limited English proficiency, and additional protected characteristics. We welcome the diversity from across our entire service area. If you have any questions or concerns, please visit mbta.com/title6, and that's title, letter V, letter I, to reach our Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. All right, so we have a very full agenda. So I'm very eager to move us into it. We're going to kick things off in a second, hearing from our general manager, Phil Eng. And then we'll turn it over to Judge Patrick King, who will deliver his semi-annual report on the status of the settlement agreement. Following the judge, we'll hear directly from two of our most valued rider stakeholder groups. Joanne Daniels-Finegold representing the named plaintiffs, and Nora Nagel representing the Riders Transportation Access Group. We're then going to walk through 4 topical presentations on key accessibility initiatives underway. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have a good amount of time at the end for questions and feedback. All right, so and without further ado, Rob, I'll ask you to take down the slides. And I will introduce our general manager, Phil Eng. GM?
Thank you so much, Laura, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to open up tonight's meeting, and I want to just say thank you for everyone taking some of your precious time and sharing that with us this evening. I think our last meeting was maybe 6 months ago. I'm excited to report that we made significant progress on so many different areas related to safety, reliability, and progress as accessibility as well. Just to touch on the track improvement program, we have made tremendous strides in improving the safety and reliability of our heavy and light rail system. We've taken the number of speed restrictions down from over 250 across our whole system to just over 80 as where we stand right now. We have significant work ongoing on the Orange Line this week, but each one of these diversions is really leading to a much improved transit trip, safer trip, and allowing us to tackle a lot of long-standing needs. So I want to thank everyone for their patience. I want to thank everyone for their support. We are reducing travel time. I think last Friday was a prime example of what we were able to do, carrying, I understand, over 1 million people into the city to support and celebrate together the Boston Celtics championship. And we were proud supporters of being able to get people both to the city and out of the city. We're also doing a lot of work to support those types of things on the bus operations side. Over the last year and a half, we've continued to hire frontline workers, operators, bus operators, and we're starting to see the benefits come from that as well. New classes, graduations, and putting bus operators in the seats to be able to operate more buses. That is not only improving the level of service for the people that rely on buses, it's reducing the number of drop trips, and it's also giving us the ability now, as we move forward, to use MBTA buses and bus operators to better support a lot of the shuttle buses that are needed to supplement when we're doing work. And that is just a step in the right direction, and I'm really excited about that. The hiring has gotten us probably to, definitely over 7,500 employees. We're continuing to hire frontline operators, frontline maintenance employees, safety employees, and folks that can help us deliver the capital program. That is a commitment we're making with a balanced budget for fiscal year 25. And because of that, I'm excited about what the year ahead has to offer. I know Sam Zhao is going to be joining us as well. He's our chief engineer. He joined the MBTA as part of the new team in August of last year. He's our chief engineer, assistant general manager for capital delivery. And he's going to talk about a lot of the efforts that he's working on delivering capital projects, but also delivering a lot of station projects and how we intend to make more stations accessible. Sam, working with Laura, working with Dennis Varley, and working with operations, Ryan Caholan, our chief operating officer, have really put together a strong plan. Over the last year, I think since the last time, we've made an additional 10 commuter rail stations accessible in part to innovative station designs and solutions by all of this internal team. And then the Green Line is really exciting. Not only will everyone see the mock-up Type 10 Green Line car soon. But we look forward to everyone coming to see it in person. But the stations that these Green Line trains will service, out of 30 stations that are inaccessible today, 29 are under design. And we will be updating a significant number of these over the next 2 years. And I think back in May, we recently announced, and some of you joined us, the pursuit and success of federal dollars, $67 million under the ASAP program that will help us deliver Green Line station accessibility. We're really excited about it. There's 14 stations that exist that will be part of this project across the B and C branches of the Green Line. And it's not just about making stations accessible. System-wide accessibility and many others here are advancing really important initiatives. I talked about the hiring of bus operators and the ability to do more in-house shuttle buses, but also working together on how do we make our third-party bus operators more accessible and improving the accessibility. How do we improve wayfinding and guidance throughout our system for everybody? And working with MassDOT, how do we improve pedestrian needs in other areas, particularly near bike lanes and bus stops? These are all important and near to there, all of us. And then communications and connecting with communities. And I know recently at the board meeting, I had a chance to share some images of our outreach and communications. And thank you to Joey Daniels-Finegold, who invited us to a local farmers market where we got to go and participate, but we also got to share some updates with the public there. I'm thankful for everyone for your time tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this. And I look forward to hearing Judge King's remarks and comments from the plaintiffs, as well as RTAG, and all the feedback and suggestions from each and every one of you. So I look forward to a very exciting evening. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, General Manager. All right, and next up we have Judge King, the independent monitor of this very settlement agreement, here to deliver his status report on the state of the settlement. Judge.
Yes, good afternoon and welcome to this public meeting. And thank you, General Manager Ng, for all the progress you've made this past year. I know from my own experience as a regular rider of the Red Line that I've noticed remarkable improvements in eliminating the slow areas, making my travels much more speedy and avoiding all those delays that we've been experiencing in the recent past. Now, for those of you who have not attended one of these biannual public meetings before, let me explain my role and the purpose of these meetings. As part of a 2006 settlement of a class action under the Americans with Disability Act, I was appointed by the Federal District Court as the independent monitor to oversee compliance with the settlement agreement. The settlement agreement provides for these public meetings twice a year. This is our 34th public meeting. The purpose of the meeting is for me to report on the T's compliance with the settlement agreement, to bring the community up to date on recent accessibility improvements, and to obtain public feedback on how well the T is doing in meeting its obligations. This will be our 9th public meeting conducted using Zoom. It requires considerable expertise to manage a meeting like this. And I'd like to thank all the T employees, interpreters, whose technical skills make these Zoom meetings possible. Special thanks to Jennifer Ross, who has been working on this meeting probably since the beginning of the year and has done a magnificent job in her work. The 2006 settlement agreement obligated the T to make over 200 changes to the system to improve accessibility for all riders. In December 2018, the plaintiffs and the T signed an amended settlement agreement that listed 46 items that remain to be completed under the original agreement. The amended settlement agreement sets forth the timetable for completing the remaining 46 terms, as well as certain additional commitments that the T agreed that were not part of the original settlement agreement. Since the amended settlement agreement was signed, the T has complied with 37 of the 46 terms listed in the amended settlement agreement, leaving 9 terms to be completed. While some of the terms, once completed, required no further action, such as phasing out high-floor buses with mechanical lifts. Most fall into the currently compliant category, where the T has an ongoing obligation to remain compliant, and I continue to monitor performance in those areas such as elevator uptime. After the T completes its obligations under the amended settlement agreement, the Riders Transportation Group, also known as RTAG, will be responsible for overseeing the T's ongoing accessibility performance. I realize that some of the people attending today's meeting are probably users of the ride services and may have had bad experiences with that service. However, we will not be discussing the ride today because the amended settlement agreement does not cover the ride. So any questions related to the ride should be directed to SWA separate from today's meeting. A key provision of the settlement agreement provides for the creation of the internal monitoring program. Under this program, teams of observers and testers travel the system and report on how well the T is doing when it comes to meeting its accessibility goals. This includes everything from reporting on the quality of stop announcements to the quality of securements of wheel mobility devices. Glinda Campbell, who is responsible for overseeing the internal monitoring program, provides quality reports to me, the plaintiffs, and team management. With some exceptions, the reports reflect a high degree of compliance with the requirements of the amended settlement agreement. SWA and team managers now have a very good system in place to keep track of accessibility complaints and to conduct prompt investigation of complaints. The employees who fail to meet their obligations regarding accessibility may be disciplined. Of the 117 complaints received from riders during the first quarter of this year, all but four were promptly investigated. The 4 that were not investigated was due to insufficient information provided by the rider. The internal monitoring program, however, can only do so much because of the size of the program compared to the millions of bus and train trips taken every week. So it's very important that you report any problems you encounter and provide sufficient information so that the MBTA can follow up on the complaints. The following are some examples of information contained in the bus monitoring report for the first quarter of this year that I would like to share with you. All the monitors were able to board their assigned fixed route buses successfully. Bus operators pulled to the curb 97% of the time. For wheel mobility device users, buses pulled to the curb 99% of the time. For ambulatory passengers, the bus pulled to the curb 93% of the time. Onboard stop announcements were made both audibly and visually 97% of the time. External destination announcements were audible 97% of the time. I'm referring to the audible announcement that you can hear, or should be able to hear, when the bus pulls up at the stop. This represents a significant improvement over the first quarter of 2023, when the external announcements were only audible 92% of the time. Operators fulfilled a reasonable request for assistance 92% of the time. This typically involves requests to lower the ramp for ambulatory passengers or requests to be dropped off at a particular stop. There were no refusals to requests for assistance, but 8% of the time, the requests were not fulfilled. This often involved requests to be dropped off at a particular stop where the operator neglected to let the passenger know when the bus arrived at the requested stop. Let me address the wheel mobility securement problem. More improvement needs to be made by T employees to properly secure wheel mobility devices on buses. While 4 straps were secured 86% of the time, this is well below the 94% compliance rate before the pandemic. Moreover, even when all straps were employed, they were only properly tightened 42% of the time. This represents a decline since the second quarter of 2023, when the rate of compliance was 61%. Also, operators were unable or unwilling to deploy the lap and shoulder belts 57% of the time, even though the lap belts were in good working condition. Later in today's program, you will hear from Daniel LaFouque about the improvements to the bus operator training program that will hopefully improve operators' performance in properly securing wheel mobility devices in the future. Clear audible stop announcements on both the blue and orange lines during the first quarter of this year were made 100% of the time for the second quarter in a row. While our red line stop announcements continue to improve, the percentage of clear audible stop announcements on the red line were only made 84% of the time. And 8% of the time, no stop announcements were made on the red line during the first quarter of this year. Clear audible stop announcements on the green line were made 89% of the time. Term 22M of the amended settlement agreement requires the T to take reasonable steps to eliminate excessive vertical and horizontal gaps between the platform and train cars. As a result of the considerable efforts by the MBTA about 10 years ago, I found that the T to be in substantial compliance with term 22M. However, in my March 14, 2024 compliance report, I found a worsening problem with gaps between the trains and platforms, particularly on the orange line, where the deployment of the new trains have in many locations resulted in a worsening of the gaps, especially the vertical gaps. Because the T has an obligation to maintain ongoing substantial compliance with term 22M, I reported that unless reasonable steps are promptly taken to address this problem, I will be required to find that T is no longer in substantial compliance with term 22M. For this reason, I request the T to provide me with a plan within 60 days to mitigate the gap problem. I have since given the T until August 19 to submit the remedial plan to me. Later in the program, you will hear from Dan Carroll and Jack Durkin, who will bring you up to date on what is being done to address the orange line gap problem. At our June 2023 meeting, I discussed the problem with missing bus signs. Since then, the MBTA has completed an audit of about 4,500 of the 76 bus stops, and in the process of coming up with a plan to relocate, or rather replace missing and defective signs. I expect that the T will have a plan in place by our next meeting in December. As part of the bus network redesign initiative, over 300 signs will be installed and replaced in Chelsea, Everett, Revere, East Boston, and Malden. Also, based upon a recent pilot project, the T is considering using larger bus signs to make them more readable. In my past reports, I expressed my concern that there's been a decrease in the uptime of elevators. During fiscal year 2021, elevator uptime was 99.5%, while fiscal year 2022, it decreased to 98.5%. Since our last meeting in December, elevator uptime has improved. Between January and May 2024, elevator uptime was 99.2%, and in May, uptime was 99.4%. Hopefully, elevator uptime will continue to improve and meet the uptime goal of at least 99.5%. For the past several years, I've reported problems with a call center which was being operated by a private vendor. I've recommended that this service be brought back in-house. The T is now bringing the call center back in-house, and Carla Howes will bring you up to date on this transition plan later in the program. Terms 73 and 77 of the amended settlement agreement requires that the T provide alternative transportation services consistent with the ADA for persons with disabilities. With all the construction taking place at T facilities, there has been an increased need for alternative transportation between stations, especially during the weekends. Because the T lacks sufficient bus drivers to provide the service, it needs to rely on private contractors for alternative transportation services. At times, those contractors lack sufficient resources and need to rely on out-of-state bus companies to meet their needs. Often the buses used by these vendors are coach-style buses with mechanical wheeled mobility device lifts that often do not work, or when they do work, the operators don't know how to use the lifts. While the T has done an excellent job in organizing alternative transportation when needed and providing private vendors with excellent curriculum for ADA training, the private vendors have not all been doing a satisfactory job training drivers and assuring their compliance with the ADA. Internal monitoring reports, as well as random inspections by T officials, have confirmed that more work needs to be done to make sure that private vendors fulfill their ADA obligations. The T is taking steps to address this problem, including increasing operation staffs for improved oversight of contractors, barring Academy Bus from doing additional work until the T accepts their accessibility action plan, and improving contract language concerning accessibility obligations. Hopefully by our December public meeting, I'll be able to report that more progress has been made in this area. That concludes my report, and I will now turn the program over for a statement by the next speaker.
Judge, thank you so much. All right, so next up, Rob, if you want to pull the slides back up. I have the pleasure of introducing Joanne Daniels-Finegold, who is the lead named plaintiff in the settlement agreement. Joanne?
Hold on. Oh, good Lord. Excuse me. Just the wrong finger move and I lost my speech. So I have to go back and get it. Sorry.
Do you want me to hand it over to Nora for a second?
I'm sorry.
Joanne, this is Nora. Do you want me to go first?
Yes, please.
All
Thank you,
right.
Nora.
So all right, let's do that. Nora, next slide, Rob. All right, so I am now going to introduce Nora Nagel, who is the co-chair of our official advisory group on accessibility matters, the Riders Transportation Access Group. Nora.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. As Laura mentioned, I'm co-chair of the executive board of the Rider Transportation Access Group, and just wanted to talk a little about things that have been going well and things that we believe maybe not so well over the last 6 months. Let's start with this. So we've created an RTAG working group focused on the unique challenges and access needs of those who are blind, have low vision, and or are experiencing progressive vision loss, especially older adults. The objective is to increase awareness of accessibility features that already exist on public transit and to try to eliminate barriers that prevent blind and low vision individuals from using fixed route public transit. We also want older adults who are frequent MBTA users to feel confident enough to continue to use the fixed route system as their vision loss may progress. To accomplish this, we plan to review and share new and innovative solutions, including AI technologies, to try to tackle issues such as wayfinding. By enhancing safety, independence, and support for riders, we want to create an inclusive environment where everyone has the tools to use public transportation in an equitable, safe, and dignified manner. Joanne is going to mention in her talk a meeting that we had to go over the draft municipal communication and coordination plan. But one of the things we've also done is we recently met with the MBTA and the City of Boston to discuss concerns that we have related to Center Island bus stops. Both the disability community and the MBTA have raised safety concerns about these stops. Although the MBTA and the city have voiced their commitment to identifying design solutions that will reduce safety concerns on their existing designs, there are still significant and fundamental issues. The City of Boston is hoping that center bus stops will decrease trip time and keep traffic flowing smoothly. However, gaining access to these Center Island bus stops requires crossing often very busy streets at predetermined locations. This highly restricts access to and means of egress from essential bus stops, and it ignores a fact that is very basic in the daily lives of people with disabilities. The fact is that the best route is often not the shortest route or the most direct route. If a curb cut is damaged, or full of water, or a crosswalk has a pothole, or if an audible traffic signal is out, we can and do have to find another route to get where we're going that we're comfortable with and feel safe using. Being able to decide where you feel safe crossing a busy street is essential to pedestrian safety and independence. This is something that the city refuses to acknowledge. People with disabilities must constantly reevaluate and alter our routes for safety. If the city pursues this course of action, which forces people to cross very busy city streets and intersections at predetermined locations, it is taking away our autonomy and independence. If that street crossing is blocked by construction, broken sidewalks, trash barrels, utility work, snow or ice, or a car that just happened to pull up too far in a travel lane and is blocking a crosswalk, then access for us to that bus stop is completely denied. Additionally, disembarking on a center bus stop can present even more challenges and can isolate riders with disabilities. If a person with a disability disembarks on a center island, almost all traditional environmental wayfinding supports that we rely on are gone. If you disembark at a bus stop on a sidewalk, you'll encounter passersby. You can head down the sidewalk until you find a landmark. You can enter a business or a building and ask for help or directions. If you are a person with a disability on a center island bus stop and unfamiliar with your location, you are quite literally trapped on an island. Help is on the other side of a very busy street. If people with disabilities have their sense of autonomy, independence, and safety taken away by the center island bus stops being proposed by the city of Boston and the MBTA, it will mean that people with disabilities will once again have our access to the convenience of fixed route public transportation and the autonomy that it provides taken away or seriously restricted. The city of Boston's continued pursuit of center bus islands will inevitably result in an increased ridership on the ride paratransit service, overburdening that system and creating a significant financial strain on the MBTA, as well as a huge and unnecessary life burden on MBTA riders with disabilities. The RTAG Executive Board urges the MBTA to continue pushing MassDOT and municipalities to think differently about not only bus stop design, but also bike lanes. The number of bike lanes have expanded greatly over the last few years, and they have introduced major safety concerns for people with disabilities. Their inconsistent design, which can include floating and constrained bus stops, are often used unpredictably. That total lack of consistency or predictability puts people with disabilities and older adults at serious risk of being hit by bicycles or cars. The main issue is the lack of standardization in the design of bike lanes adjacent to bus stops. The current design guidelines date back to 2015 and did not factor in accessibility. They were developed without the input or perspective of people with disabilities. It's imperative that the MBTA work with MassDOT and municipalities to ensure that pedestrians and transit riders with disabilities are included in the development of updated design guidelines for bike lanes adjacent to bus stops. Accessibility considerations should not and legally cannot be sidelined in favor of other urban planning objectives. Access for people with disabilities must be included in the planning and design process from the beginning. Considerations for people with disabilities and older adults must be integral in the decision-making so as to ensure that infrastructure changes like floating and constrained bus stops, as well as bike lane installations, do not create new barriers to access or roll back progress that has already been made to improve access. The perspective and experiences of people with disabilities are crucial in identifying potential obstacles and developing effective solutions. And I can't say this too loudly or too often, before the designs are set and the decisions have been made. Don't ask for our input at the 11th hour and tell us that we're being heard. We know what inclusion is and we know what it's not. Thanks.
All right, Nora, thank you very much for that. And one ongoing commitment we have at the T is the continued engagement with you and RTAG, both on our internal conversations about Center Island bus stops, as well as conversations with the city, and then conversations with MassDOT around bike lane guidelines.
Thank you. We understand that the MBTA doesn't work in a vacuum and that you guys can lead with municipalities and MassDOT in this process. And we are looking forward to your support.
Thanks, Norm. All right, Joanne, let me check back in with you to see if you are ready or if you would like to defer your speech to your comments until after. our
I'm
sta-
good. I got it, Laura. Cat
All right,
saves
all right.
the day.
With no further ado, Joanne Daniels-Finegold.
Okay, I hope you can hear me okay. Okay,
Yes.
thank you for attending this meeting led by Judge King. We appreciate your interest. One of the purposes of these meetings is for the named plaintiffs of the accessibility case to share with the public and the MBTA our analysis of the T since the last meeting. We now also have input from the executive board of the Rogers Transportation Access Group. First, some good news. In May, the MBTA received a $67 million grant from the federal government to be used to upgrade 14 above-ground Green Line stations. Making these stations accessible is a major improvement. In some areas, there are many stops between those that are accessible. The first municipal communication and coordination plan meeting was held in January. The meeting was attended by representatives of cities and towns in the MBTA coverage area. Its purpose is to prevent municipal projects from interfering in bus stops and routes and to try to make a plan for perennial snow removal problems. Gaps continue to be a problem. The Red Line has new gaps. I personally have gone from not needing bridge plates to relying on them. There are clearly an increase of transit ambassadors in the stations. Boarding a subway with assistance usually is not a problem, but there's not always assistance at your destination station. There's a lack of communication in this process, and better communication is needed. The Access in Motion marketing campaign was a wonderful introduction to the access features available on the MBTA. On the MBTA vehicles and in stations. But there seems to be a disconnect with regard to who can use the bus or Green Line ramps, as well as other accessible features. I've told many overwhelmed moms that they can use the ramps and they're allowed to request this help. It doesn't help when I hear bus drivers tell people not to walk on the ramps. It's been a great beginning, but it needs to be reinforced. I've even asked about bridge plates. I've been asked about bridge plates while I'm using them, and I tell people how to request them. Okay, here's the elephant in the room. The third-party contracted bus service report by the internal monitors in the first quarter of 2024 showed that 44% of the testers attempting to board were denied service. 87% of trips attempted on high-floor buses were denied. This is unacceptable. In addition, some of the personnel of the contracted vendor are rude, quite rude. Driver attitudes can be a barrier to transportation. That's one of the points that I had to research when we were in discovery on the case. And I had international as well as local information showing that a bus driver's attitude can be definitely a barrier to transportation and keep people away from outside activities. Training is needed. Bus monitors found the first quarter of 2024 that only 40% of the securements were done properly on the T buses. Again, training is needed. Stop announcements on the orange and blue lines were 100% clear and audible. Maintenance and rail operations are working on the rest. We have challenges to face. We have challenges to overcome, and some problems to revisit and solve. Nothing is insurmountable. Thank you.
All right, Joanne, thank you as always. And we look forward to addressing some of those specific issues you cited, particularly around the securements and third-party bus findings. Okay, we are now moving on to the portion of the meeting in which we talk about some of the major accessibility initiatives underway here at the MBTA. For those of you that are not aware, every 6 months we publish a comprehensive report on all of the different major projects underway. We actually just released our latest report 2 days ago. Lisa is going to drop a link to that PDF in the chat if you have a chance after the meeting to take a look, please do. We also welcome any questions or any suggestions for future areas of focus. Currently, we've got over 50 major programs and projects underway, from new stations to new vehicles to improved trainings and all sorts of policy and innovation related work. All right, but I'm not going to focus on getting into any of those details because we do want to hear from a number of other presenters. I do just have to share one thing. Next slide, Rob. So for those of you that are not aware, the named plaintiffs from the Daniels-Finegold settlement, along with the attorneys who led the case from GBLS, Tara Doucette and Dan Manning, were honored this past April by the Massachusetts Office on Disability. The Office on Disability honored the plaintiffs by giving the Thomas B. Hopkins Disability Access Award to them, really as a recognition for the tremendous impact they've had on public transportation, not only in the Boston area, not only in Massachusetts, but really across the country. It was a really wonderful day. There was a great panel discussion where we had an opportunity to reflect on lessons learned from the start of the settlement, and was an opportunity to both celebrate the progress that's been made and think about all the work we want to and have to do in the future. So again, on behalf of the T, I just want to say congratulations to the plaintiffs. This was a particularly meaningful award in that Tom Hopkins was the long-term director of the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, and really recognized as somebody who was a lifelong champion of people with disabilities, and who himself drove major changes to making the state more equitable and safer for everyone. All right, next slide. And just a general note, if you are interested in learning more about anything we talk about here tonight, or anything having to do with accessibility, we've got some great resources. First is our website, which is very comprehensive, mbta.com/accessibility. We also have that initiatives report I just mentioned, which you can get to by going to mbta.com/accessibility-initiatives. Despite the progress we will be talking about, we fully recognize that there are still major barriers within our system. So if you run into an issue or you have a question, we really do want to hear from you so we can take action. You can do that in a few different ways. You can contact our customer support center at 617-222-3200. You can file a comment form online by going to mbta.com and clicking on the support option at the top of the screen. Or you can tweet at us at MBTA. We do have another public meeting coming up at the end of July. This is the next public RTAG meeting, and that will be at 5:30 p.m. on July 25th. And for those of you that like to plan way ahead, like our very own Jennifer Ross, our next settlement related meeting will be on December 11th, also at 5:30. All right, so now without any further ado, I would like to introduce our first topical presentation and ask Sam Zoe, our chief engineer, to join me on the screen. Sam is going to talk through a number of the major station upgrades that he and his team are leading. Sam, take it away.
Thanks, Laura. Everybody hear me okay? Just check the mic.
Yes.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Zoe. I'm the chief engineer overseeing the engineering and the capital division at the MBTA. As the GM mentioned, I joined MBTA last fall after 31 years of public service in New York State. My career mostly in delivering capital programs. I had the pleasure of working with the GM for 3 decades, and I'm very excited to have this opportunity to continue to work with the GM at the T and continue to deliver the capital projects, transportation projects. This is my opportunity to introduce myself, and I'm very much looking forward to and committed to working with this stakeholder group to meet your accessibility needs. Next. Thank you. I have some good progress to report out. Let's start with the light transit system. Most of the remaining work to achieve the accessibility lies on the Green Line, as everybody knows. Out of the total 70 Green Line stations, we still have 30 stations were inaccessible to date. We're breaking up our work into several phases. First, we are actually going to, pretty soon, we are going to start working on raising the platform to 8 inches from the top of the grade. That's the first phase. I'm going to get into a little bit more. This will provide access to existing fleet as well as the future Type 10 cars accessible for with the bridge plates. The next phase, obviously, is the very exciting Type 10 cars. We're going to share some good news pretty soon, but just give you a heads up that the mock-up of the new train is being developed both in Spain and also in Elmira, New York. And pretty soon we'll introduce that at Government Center, expected this fall 2024. You will see that very exciting new Type 10 vehicles. I'm sure you are aware Type 10 has the 100% low floors and has the also the accessible bridge plates. So that's the next phase, and we are on schedule delivering Type 10. We're going to see the pilot cars at the beginning of 2026. Then the real fleet will start to deliver between 2027 and 2030. Then once all the Type 10 arrived and gradually replacing the remaining old fleet, that's Type 7, Type 8, then we will raise the platform from 8 inches to 14 inches to achieve level boarding. Next, please. I'd like to just give a quick overview of our capital investment plan. As a matter of fact, this should be in front of the Green Line, the stations. But the good news is June 11th of this month, MBTA board has approved the MBTA fiscal year 2025 to 2029 capital investment plan. In this plan, we have included 640 different projects valued total at 9.6 billion with a B, $billion investment, and roughly $1 billion worth of projects that includes significant accessibility components. So that's a very good news for this stakeholder group. Next, please. Apologize, I don't know why the lines, the slides were flipped. But continue on the green line upcoming projects. We have a number of projects in the pipeline. As the GM mentioned, 29 out of 30 are being designed. Only one that it is on hold at this moment is Boylston. Symphony Station, we designed it, we advertised it. This is a significant accessibility improvement project with 4 elevators and 6 head houses, significant upgrade of the system. We advertised and open bid about 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, the bid is significantly higher than our budget, precisely 68% higher. So we are evaluating the bids and evaluating what's the next step for this project. We committed to deliver this project in the near future. D branch, as you know, we still have 4 D branch stations are not accessible. Our plan is by the end of this year, we will deliver platforms, 8-inch platforms with ramps to provide interim accessibility at these stations. And we're also targeting 2026. We will develop and deliver a comprehensive upgrade at these 4 stations plus the Newton Highlands. Next one, please. B and C, as you know, we still have 18 out of 30 B and C branch street level stations that not accessible. And our plan is to leveraging design build delivery approach to accelerate those delivery schedules. Just a quick update, the B branch, we still have some design work to do. The C branch, however, we have achieved 30% design. We are going to issue a design build procurement method and put those projects on the street at the latter part of this year. Our goal is to construct, let me finish that, and then also at the end of this year, we will put entire B branch, 9 stations on the street. So the goal is to have all these stations to be constructed in 2025 and 2026. Bear in mind, because we still have those old fleet running on B lines, so all these stations will have 8-inch lift first before we can achieve level boarding. The E branch, that's a little bit more complicated. As you're fully aware, we did some community outreach, joined forces with the City of Boston planning team. We are still in discussion with the City of Boston regarding the basic design concept. I hear some feedback during this call about center platforms. We will definitely take your input seriously. Hines and Boylston, because of these are pretty complicated locations, require extensive construction investment. At this moment, we are temporarily put these on hold until further notice. Next, please. Let's talk about heavy rail. As you know, all red, orange, blue, these heavy rail lines, stations are accessible, acceptable, and Bowdoin. That's on B branch, end of the B branch. However, there are a number of accessibility barriers, particularly smaller and outdated elevators, all very convoluted primary paths in some of the stations. Most obvious one is downtown crossing. I'm going to talk about that. And the goal is to address these major barriers by building in redundancy system-wide. Next, please. We have a number of station projects in the pipeline. Ruggo is one of them. Ruggo is to provide new access entrance at the Columbus Avenue, and also major state-of-the-art repair upgrades at the facility. Our goal is to look at the market. Really, at this moment, I'm going to get into a little bit more about how we can strategize and get the biggest bang for the buck to advertise these projects. Ruggo is completely designed, and we are ready to deliver this. The other two is Central Square and Jackson Square. Central Square, we're gonna both are close to complete the design. Central Square, we're gonna install one new redundant elevator in addition to replace an existing elevator, and also add 2 new head houses. Jackson Square, we're going to replace the existing elevator and adding a redundant elevator at Jackson Square. Next, please. Downtown crossing. Everybody know this is the last major capital item within the settlement. The project is near the completion of the design. We are strategizing what would be the best procurement method to deliver this project in the near future. Everybody knows that this is a very convoluted connections between Orange Line and the Red Line. And just a quick update of what we're gonna do. I have a few notes for myself. On the Winter Street, we're gonna replace the existing street level elevator to MBTA standard and connect Orange Line southbound with Red Line branch rebound. At below Macy's store, we are going to build an elevator to connect the Orange Line northbound with the Red Line branch rebound. That's the outbound. At Park Street, we will replace the existing elevator, which connects the Green Line and the Red Line. And following the existing bid of the Symphony Station, as I mentioned, we are strategizing how we're gonna put out all these projects on the street without jam up the market. So that's something that we are actively working behind the scene. And I have a slide that talk about the market. Next, please. Let's talk about the commuter rail accessibility. At this moment, we still have 26 stations that are currently inaccessible. We have 3 projects are in flight. These are the 3 projects in Natick, Winchester, and North Wilmington. The good news is we are on schedule to deliver these projects all before the end of this year, calendar year. I have a slide on this. In addition, we're also constructing interim freestanding mini-high platforms at 12 to 16 stations that do not require complex solutions. Advanced designs And we also advanced design and construction of permanent upgrade of 7 stations that requires further, solutions. That's Wellesley, Audubon, West Newtonville, West Newtonville, Aya, Wesley Farmer, and the Windsor Gardens. And in the future, we will rebuild stations with the mini highs to provide a full high platform and with appropriate vertical circulations. Next, please. So this is just the illustration of these 3 stations that's in flight. Natick, we're going to deliver this by construction will complete in December. Winchester, we're going to have a partial station opening in September, and North Wilmington by October. Next, please. And these are the stations that are going to build the freestanding mini highs. And on the right side of your screen, you can see a sample picture of what the mini high looks like. Next, please. So this is what we are really working hard behind the scene. After Symphony bid opening, we certainly realized that there is a significant construction cost escalation taking place in the last several years, particularly post-COVID. And I have just read some articles. Nationwide, we have seen, and this is the data from Federal Highway Administration, they seeing that the transportation construction cost escalation has been as high as 30% in some pockets of the nation, area. So any cost we have right now, we have to take some deeper dive and look at these costs, whether or not these reflect the current market. The other thing is we have noticed there's a smaller number of contractors that bid on our projects. And this is also a nationwide phenomenon. Smaller number of bidders result higher prices. And we are actually exploring the possibility of tapping into other untapped market, construction contractors market. And obviously, we are running revenue services every day. Right-of-way access is in high demand, and that certainly limit our the time window that we can deliver these projects. We do not have blue sky construction zones, unfortunately. All these projects that we have to essentially, picture that you have to change your plane's engine while you are in flight. And this is exactly what we are facing delivering these station projects. Next, please. Okay, I think I just finished my update and looking forward to get some feedback from this group.
Sam, thank you so much. Definitely a lot to be excited about with all of this progress in the pipeline, but certainly a lot to feel challenged with given some of these recent cost estimates and cost escalation we've been seeing. So I know we had some questions in the chat. We're going to hold those until the end of the meeting, and then I'm happy to discuss any of those further. Thanks again, Sam. All right, so switching gears pretty significantly, I am really excited to introduce somebody who is not a stranger to many of you. That is Carla House, our long-term director of the customer communications team. Carla is here to talk about something we're particularly excited about, and that is the transition of our customer call center from an outsourced contract to an internal team. Carla?
Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, I should say. The next slide, please. So the MBTA call center was outsourced in May of 2017. We've had 2 vendor contractors in the past 7 years, Global Contact Services, which was otherwise known as GCS, and Accela Technologies. Both companies failed to provide the level of service our customers deserved. So as of the ending of the Accela contract, May 31st, we transitioned the call center services back to the MBTA, officially opening our new call center June 1st, 2024. Now, some of the highlights of our new department, we've been budgeted for 17 representatives. We currently have 12. We are in the process of hiring 5 more in the next couple of weeks. And we are also looking to hire more to cover all of the call center service hours to meet the needs of our customers. We have 2 supervisors, 1 quality assurance manager, and some of the key responsibilities for that position will be training, monitoring of service quality, reviewing intake of complaints, and providing real-time feedback. We also have enhanced training. We've done a shortened version of the accessibility training provided by System-Wide Accessibility, but the System-Wide Accessibility team will be coming in to do a more extensive training with our staff in the next couple of weeks. And we've already seen some results as a result of better training and better training on issue identification on accessibility complaints. 54% increase in accessibility complaints assigned to SWA from May to June of 2024. Next slide. So what are the benefits of the in-house call center? To provide a consistent voice of the MBTA. Flexibility to scale operations for future demands like service disruptions, emergency and weather events, so we can scale up and down to meet the needs of our customers. Reduce technology risk, which we've had in the past with our vendors, utilizing in-house experts. Better quality of complaint intake, resulting in better complaint investigation, reporting, and resolution. Direct contact and collaboration with system-wide accessibility, operations staff, social media, and other departments. And we've had a lot of that in just the last couple of weeks that we've had the call center. Better retention of staff, resulting in less turnover and better quality, which was also an issue with our vendors. Access to resident experts to resolve complex issues, and all of the training is conducted by MBTA experts like System-Wide Accessibility and Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. We are very excited about our new department, and we're looking forward to providing gold star customer service to all of our customers. Thank you, Laura.
Carla, thank you very much. We're looking forward to working with the new team. All right, next I'm going to ask Dan Carroll and Jack Durkin from our engineering division to join me. Dan and Jack are going to be discussing the development of our corrective action plan related to the platform gaps on the orange line that you heard the judge discuss at the beginning of the meeting. All right, guys, take it away.
Thanks, Laura, and good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Carroll. I'm a Senior Manager of Facilities and Infrastructure Engineering. I'm also joined by Jack Durkin, Project Manager on this effort. So originally, this project came to us about a year ago with a goal of collecting measurements on every door-to-platform location on the orange line to identify areas of non-compliance and to propose actions for mediation. I'm going to pass it to Jack here for some background on the program.
Of course. Thank you, Dan. Good evening, everybody. As Dan said, my name is Jack Durkin. I'm a project manager for the Capital and Engineering Department at the MBTA. I'm working under Sam Zhao. I worked with Dan on mobilizing a crew to investigate and survey the gap between the car doors and the platform along the orange line. For context, the gap is the horizontal and vertical transition between the platform and the train doors. The horizontal gap, simple to think, it's the distance from the platform to the train door. This distance cannot exceed 3 inches per Massachusetts Architectural Access Board. The vertical gap is the distance from the platform to the train floor. Now, this distance cannot exceed 1/2 inch plus or minus per Massachusetts Architectural Access Board. I'd like to give you a quick recap on the 2023 gap investigation and survey we did. Over the course of a week, we completed measurements on 10 different train sets. The survey was conducted northbound and southbound, taking measurements at all 18 doors at each platform. We did this during revenue service to best emulate the rider experience. Past efforts had only taken measurements at single stations, like one-off, or during non-revenue service. Ultimately, we decided the way to gather the most comprehensive data would be to have a field engineer at each train door taking a measurement at every stop while riding the train northbound and southbound. This required 18 surveyors, 1 at each door. If you look to the picture on the screen, you can see a large amount of crew, 1 at every door, taking the measurement vertically and horizontally. And this was done over the course of a whole week with 18 people on a train. A lot of work. Now, these findings, the initial findings, we can go probably to the next slide for everybody to keep up. Yeah. The initial findings showed a range of vertical and horizontal gaps, not just from station to station, but also within, say, the most north side of a station to the south side. There were wide range. Overall, the majority of station platforms were to be found out of compliance. On average, 48% of our platforms exceeded 3-inch horizontal requirement, while 59% of platforms exceeded the 1/2 inch plus or minus vertical requirement. Noticeable trends were present on the southwest corridor. This is defined from Tough Station south to Forest Hill, where the vertical gaps averaged around 1 and 1/2 inch, and the horizontal gaps exceeded 3 inches on average. Based off these findings and all the survey work, a corrective action plan is being developed per Judge King. He mentioned it earlier. There are multiple components that can cause the gap between a train and platform. The major components being the train vehicle, the station platform profile, and the track profile the train runs on. To talk more into detail on those, I'm going to kick it back to Dan Carroll. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Step 1, updating internal standards. In conjunction with the survey of the new Orange Line fleet, the MBTA has been highly motivated to review all design and maintenance standards for track, platform, and vehicle. The 1977 Manual of Guidelines and Standards, which predate MAAB regulations, still serve as a baseline system-wide. Infrastructure engineering, which is my team, is currently working with Maintenance Away, Transit Facility Maintenance, and Vehicle Engineering to modernize this design criteria. Stations along the Southwest Corridor, which were constructed in the 1980s, designed and built to these standards. Presently, new Orange Line vehicles are calibrated to 44 1/4 inch above top of rail before being put into service. Maintenance Away is laying new track to measure 44 inches from top of rail to top of platform. This sets a design tolerance of 1/4 inch for vertical gaps between platform and vehicle floor. And the image on screen here is a cross-section of an Orange Line vehicle at a platform. In blue, we're showing the vertical and horizontal dimensions of the vehicle and its relationship between the top of rail and the platform edge. Next slide, please. Step 2, modify tracks and platforms where feasible. The Orange Line is made up of 2 types of track infrastructure: ties and ballast and direct fixation. Tie and ballast is a more elastic type of track infrastructure that is utilized from Oak Grove to Chinatown. This type of track has some flexibility for adjustment, though not much. A full depth track replacement has been completed at 6 platforms, while several others have been adjusted by a process called tamping. Additionally, rub rail is being installed at several locations to reduce the horizontal gap to less than 3 inches. Next slide, please. Step 3, identify solutions for locations where track adjustments are not feasible in the short term. At areas which are served by direct fixation track, it is not feasible to lower the track profile without full depth reconstruction of the track pit. In the long term, this issue may be rectified through a proposed modernization of the Southwest Corridor. However, in the interim, MBTA teams are exploring the feasibility of alternative solutions to reduce these gaps. Next slide, please. For added context, here we have an image of direct fixation on the left and more traditional ties and ballast on the right. These represent the two types of track infrastructure on the orange line. Forest Hills to Tufts, also known as the Southwest Corridor, is entirely direct fixation. Chinatown to Oak Grove is tie and ballast. The image of direct fixation on the left is taken at Stony Brook Station. This is showing how the rail is affixed directly to a concrete slab, leaving virtually no flexibility for the track to be adjusted in elevation. The image on the right of ties and ballast is taken at the northbound track pit at Downtown Crossing. This image shows the engineering challenges with consistently aligning track with platform. The track, platform, and tunnel begin to slope downwards and curve left at the far end of the image. Next slide, please. Step 4, instituting protocols for monitoring gaps on a regular basis. Several MBTA stakeholder departments have begun a coordinated effort to conduct regular field inspections and monitor gap conditions. In addition to this work on the orange line, teams are currently planning data collection efforts for the red line on the new vehicle fleet. We expect to start this as early as this weekend. On this slide, we have an image of a track being installed at Community College Station. This image is taken from the northbound track, looking north towards Sullivan Station. What you're seeing here is cut rail in the foreground of the image and several railroad ties being set into place for new track to be installed. This photo was taken during the diversion in early June 2024. Next slide, please. Recent Orange Line track improvement work. And on a final note, as part of ongoing track improvement plan, several areas of the Orange Line track have been replaced or repaired already. During a recent survey, MBTA engineers conducted field measurements on an Orange Line train set. In addition to the 6 locations where track was fully replaced, several other locations measured within vertical compliance on average. This is an improvement on the original survey from the fall of 2023. Rub rail is also being installed in several locations during the current diversion to address horizontal gap compliance. And here we are showing rub rail installation on the image on the right. This is taken at Sullivan Square, where transit facility maintenance is currently working to address horizontal gap non-compliance. That is it for us. Thank you. Back to you, Laura, for an update on mobile bridge plates.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Jack. All right, and I just wanted to round out this particular presentation with a reminder that given the fact that we know we have some real challenging gaps out there, particularly in the Southwest Corridor and the Orange Line, just a reminder that we do have mobile bridge plates available at all of our stations along the heavy rail. So they are available to any rider upon request, and any customer can make a request to a station agent, the motor person of the train that you would like to board, or by using a call box. If you use a call box, the goal is that assistance would be dispatched to you, or the motor person of the next approaching train would deploy the bridge plate for you. I know, Joanne, at the outset of the meeting, you mentioned recently having trouble securing a bridge plate when you arrive at your destination. We've been working really closely with our OCC team to tighten up those protocols to make sure that that situation does not continue to occur. All right, next slide. All right, and I'm going to introduce our last topical presentation of the evening, and ask Dan LeFouc to join me on the screen. Dan is one of the division chiefs within our bus operations team and is here to talk about a new approach to bus operator training. Dean?
Thank you, Laura. Good evening, everyone. As she mentioned, my name is Dane Lightfook, one of the division chiefs here at the MBTA Bus Operations. I'm here to talk about bus operations training relief. I myself was a former bus operator, and I understand the importance of bus training. So I want to run through what the training relief looks like. It takes operators out of the driving for a week for them for required training and promotional training as well. So it is a 1-week training program designed to allow all operators to attend specific training and courses on a consistent basis. It's also a formalized method of keeping operators up to date on required trainings and certifications. It's also a way to invest in our employees, boost morale, boost attitudes, and the comprehensive understanding of their job. Operators will attend the program every 2 years. So we have about 1,500 bus operators. So it's a 2-year cycle where they will attend this training 1 week every 2 years, providing them with the opportunity to refresh their knowledge of operating rules and procedures and develop new skills and tools they need to excel at their job. It also gives them a chance to sharpen their techniques in securing wheeled mobility devices and performing other critical duties. Next slide, Rob. Operators attend a variety of courses, including but not limited to general bus operator recertification. And this is like a refresher for drivers on driving techniques and provides updates on roadway laws. The security awareness and emergency preparedness. This highlights the importance of security in and around our buses, trains, and facilities. De-escalation. We just started a de-escalation program, which will train operators to de-escalation techniques, and how to diffuse situations before they escalate, and which would eventually reduce employee and customer assaults. We also train on fare transformation and accessibility in motion. Next slide, Rob, please. So accessibility in motion is a comprehensive 8-hour program consisting of classroom and hands-on instructions. The course teaches operators on the importance of accessibility and the importance of the impact to our riders. It also teaches the prevalence of non-apparent disabilities, which we train operators not to make judgment. Their role and responsibilities in ensuring a rider's entire bus trip is safe and accessible. So it kind of highlights pulling into the curb 6 to 12 inches to the curb and how to deal with blocked bus stops. That seems to be a big issue for us in the city. So we communicate with the bus dispatcher and make sure we accommodate our customers properly, and how to properly assist riders when requested, how to effectively and respectfully communicate with riders with various types of disabilities. Also, we train on how to correctly secure wheeled mobility devices. So we spend several hours out of this 8-hour training day on practical training and getting our operators up to date on the existing and new devices that exist. So they're always up to date with refresher courses once every 2 years. We also train on how to communicate with and to assist riders during an emergency. So it highlights the importance of if there is a emergency shuttle or any type of emergency, how operators should be making announcements on the buses and the trains, and how to safely evacuate customers with disabilities from buses, trains, and our facilities. It also includes the perspective on riders with disabilities, so that operators can have a broader understanding of the customers that we serve. Next slide. So the next slide is going to be a quick video. Thank you.
I'm visually impaired. For travel, I use a long white cane. I've always been legally blind, could never see well enough to drive. Currently now I'm losing my ability to track people and objects, to identify things. I'm losing the ability to see high contrast or to understand depth of an object. So I may see shadows on the ground. I don't know if that's a hole or an object or a shadow. And then transitioning from light areas to dark areas, it takes a long time for my eyes to adjust and get acclimated with the new environment. I heavily rely on the fixed route system to get myself from where I live, which is in Somerville, to the Boston area. Without that, I would probably need to rely on others to bring me from point A to point B. Announcements are very, very critical, or else I wouldn't know where to get off. I wouldn't know where I was without them. For the trains, I do my best to try to count how many stops the train is expected to stop. With buses, that's a little bit hard to do because, you know, a lot of them are flag stops. They don't stop in every single bus stop. Simple as that, I guess. If I'm with someone and not paying attention, if they're sighted, I'm not as nervous. If it's not, and I'm with another visually impaired, you know, peer, I get really nervous if I don't hear the stops. And then I sort of kind of have to pick a contingency plan at that point, whether that's trying to get someone who just got on a particular stop to ask them, you know, what station we're at. I will try to find some T personnel. I might pop out my head or walk out and try to look really confused, hoping that someone comes up to me. It's a tough thing to deal with when the announcements aren't working. If the next stop announcement is not announced, it raises my anxiety level because now I'm always questioning whether or not the audible announcements are syncing up to the actual station or stop or is working properly. And, you know, there have been plenty of situations and times where it has announced the wrong stop. And then at that point, my faith that I'm hearing the correct announcement goes right out the window. When stop announcements are clear and thorough, I can have a typical trip just like everyone else, which is having my face buried in my phone or, you know, listening to music and not really needing to pay attention or having this white-knuckled experience where you're really nervous. When things work well, it's just a seamless, pleasant, normal experience, which is, I guess, what we're striving for.
All right, Dane, thank you so much. And we've got a number of videos, just like the one you saw, that are now integrated into that Access in Motion class. We're also going to be working to get those videos up online so they can be viewable by anyone at any time over the next several weeks. All right, so we have finally arrived to the open session where we are really hoping to hear from you both with respect to any comments or questions you have on the topics you heard about tonight, or really any accessibility issue you'd like to raise with folks here. So I'm gonna ask Safira Bell Masterson from my team to help me with the facilitation of this portion of the meeting. Safira?
Thanks, Laura. So to ask a question, you can indicate that you have a question by using Zoom's raise hand feature. There is a couple of different ways to do that. It is located at the bottom of your screen. So when you want to raise your hand, it alerts the moderator that you'd like to speak. That's me. I'll unmute you. I'll actually ask to unmute you, and then you'll have to unmute yourself to ask the question. And I'm going to try to go as best I can in the order that they were asked, keeping in mind that there's probably going to be questions in the chat as well as people's raised hands. So to speak, you can click reactions and then raise hands, use Alt-Y, or if you're on the phone, you can *9 to raise your hand. There's also instructions in the chat.
And before we get started, I'd just like to invite the judge to come back on camera and ask everybody to address their comments to the judge.
All right. So first I see Debbie Weathers. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Debbie Weathers.
Okay. I hit it like 5 times
No
to get it to
problem.
unmute. Okay. I have a question for Sam, I guess his name is. I've heard discussions about every station, but nothing about my usual JFK. I want to know what's going on with JFK station. I mean, I wonder if some of these he said he had like new project money. I want to know if JFK involved in any of them new projects they got going on.
So Debbie, first of all, I have to apologize that I'm still a newbie at MBTA. So I don't know every single project taking place at MBTA yet. I'm gonna ask, I think Chris Brennan and Matt Conover, if you guys have any information about any project taking place at JFK Station, feel free to chime in.
Because I noticed they got all these new elevators and redoing elevators, and we still
We
don't have
are
one at
actually,
JFK.
yes, if you're asking about the elevators, we are actually upgrading some stations, stairs, as I know, but I'm not sure particularly elevator is taking place at JFK. That
And that's
doesn't
the
mean that
problem.
it's not happening.
That's not the that's the problem. There's no elevators, there's no escalators, just
So,
about
yeah.
a 10-mile ramp.
So
And
Debbie,
I mean, I see all this money going out to all these other projects, and they're skipping the main station. That's the JF Kennedy Library, the school's there, people
So
falling
Debbie,
through the stairs. What's going on?
Debbie, I can jump in here and say, so JFK is absolutely a priority station for the MBTA, and we have over the last several years internally been working to elevate the concerns around the overall station condition, in addition, including the accessibility of the station. And I know your reference to lack of elevators about that wildly long ramp that's out there today, that is really a challenge for many riders. I will say there is a project team working on evaluating different concepts for major changes to the orientation and the accessibility of the station. That having been said, there is no construction funding identified yet, and this would be an extremely complex project, as you can imagine, similar to some of the others that Sam mentioned earlier. So JFK is in the pipeline. It is not at the front of the line right now, but please rest assured that we collectively know that the station condition is not what it should be and are working to move some progress forward incrementally.
Yes, but I don't understand
Laura.
why you're spending money on all these other stations. They've got those things.
Yes.
I mean,
so
most of the red lines, they have those things, and you're putting in new ones. Put that money towards JFK. They already have those things. Why are we giving them new ones? They have them. We don't
Debbie,
have any at that
we
station.
hear you. We'll take it back, and when we prioritize our future capital investment plan, we will take your input and keep it under consideration.
Laura, this is Phil Eng. Hi, everyone. Hi, Debbie. One of the things that we've been doing over the last year is not only reviewing our conditions of our infrastructure, and I talked a little bit about the track program, but part of this is also enhancing our stations. And first and foremost is making them safer, making them cleaner, making them more welcoming. But the other part is tied to the capital work that Sam has in progress, but also reviewing how we go about delivering them. So one of the things that you heard Sam talk about is the cost of the recent symphony bid that we received. And that does not mean that project is not going to happen. It just means we need to evaluate how best to deliver these stations. Something I've talked about publicly at other locations and in forums is that we're looking at our designs and our standards. Our goal is to deliver state-of-the-art, accessible stations. But we also think that we can do better than and looking at how we've delivered these in the past and still deliver what people deserve and expect and make the limited dollars that we have go further. One of the things that is part of our rebuilding of the organization, and I think has been instrumental in finding ways to do some of the other station work that we're doing, working with Laura, working with Sam, working with Ryan Caholen, and others in our team, Dennis Farley, who's head of stations and facilities. He is very focused on elevators and escalators and improving accessibility, not only at the stations where we have the components, but how do we best find ways to implement projects in the future. This last capital program, and it's just the first one that this team has had together, does focus on delivering some of the jobs that are already in progress, Debbie. But the next goal is then how do we start building and pushing forward projects that have been able to be funded in the past. And, one of the challenges that we're posing to ourselves, how better to deliver all of these different needs, how best to improve services sooner and not have to wait as long as they are. I think what you're hearing from my colleagues is that while I don't have an answer tonight, we certainly are focused on solving problems not only at JFK, but at a lot of our stations that need help. So we'd love to come back and be able to talk a little bit more about it. And as Sam said, and as Laura said, your voice and the concerns have not been lost on us. We certainly want to make all of our stations
All right. Thank you, Jim. Thanks, Sam. Safira.
Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate that. I'm going to put you back on mute. Tom, I see your hand, but I'm going to go to a question in the chat first. There's one from Abby Swain. Abby is asking, can you share how you train bus operators to deal with blocked stops? The problem seems worse than ever, perhaps as part of the general decline in observance of traffic laws since the pandemic. And officers I've spoken to seem to regard the situation as hopeless. Having the bus stop in the travel lane or pull part way to the curb complicates boarding and alighting, especially in snowy conditions. This is perhaps for Dean.
Hi, yes. So for block stops, we coach operators to pull up to the next safest location to disembark customers. They have to contact the dispatcher, and there's also a button on the transit master for them to push that the bus stop has been blocked. And transit police does monitor block stops, but it's the most frequent ones because it's tough for them to get out to every single bus stop that's blocked.
Thanks, Dean. Can you just very quickly, I'm going to take moderator's privilege to ask if you can share what a transit master is for those of us who are not as transit inclined.
Yeah, it's just the how they communicate with the bus dispatcher to request to talk on the radio. So there's a little computerized, like a tablet almost, and they push a request to talk to communicate with the dispatcher. So there are quick text messages, and they could text in there that the bus stop is blocked. And I know I speak with Superintendent Sullivan, and they highlight, they monitor the most blocked stops and they patrol those areas, but it's tough to get out to every single one.
Thank you, Dana. I appreciate that. All right, Tom Gilbert, I'm going to ask you to unmute. All right, Tom, it looks like you're unmuted. Go ahead.
We can't hear you. You're speaking, I know, but we can't hear you.
All right, Tom, I'm going to go to another question because we can't hear you, but please feel free to come back and jump in after this next one. So the next question I have is also from Abby, and please bear with me, this is a long one. So this is about construction costs at Hines, Boylston, and Symphony. And the question is cost escalation for subway station construction greater than that for Blue Sky Station projects? If not, then cost escalation is not a reason for abandoning major projects to upgrade high volume stations with connecting subway and bus routes in favor of easier things like platform upgrades in the tendrils of the network. Note too that the cost of right-of-way access should not be a surprise or a reason to change plans, since that's been constant since these projects were promised.
I'll be happy to answer Abby's question on this. So first of all, because of the high price, we have not reprioritized one project, Blue Sky Stations, over and harder one. That was never our intent. What I was saying is we need to be smart about how we put out the project. Looking at what market we are going to advertise these projects. And that is the strategy we're trying to contemplate. We're not taking any projects off the plate. We will work behind the scene looking for, if needs additional money, we have to prioritize and see whether or not there are things we can do to make it, affordable. But advancing the B branch and C branch project doesn't mean that we are robbing projects from the projects already being designed, such as Symphony, such as Ruggles or Downtown Crossing. No, I make it absolutely clear they're not in conflict with each other. Hope I answered the question.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. All right. I see that Tom has left the building, who was our last question, and has not returned yet. So that does conclude any raised hands or chat questions. I think this is the speak now or hold your peace for 6 months moment. So I'll give folks one more moment to attempt to raise their hand, and then otherwise we don't have any other questions. Oh, we have Debbie again. All right, Debbie, I'm asking to unmute. Nope. Never mind. Debbie's hand is down. All right, Laura, I think we're good.
All right, Severa, thank you so much. All right, we've got one last slide. Rob, if you can advance. So again, more than anything, just want to thank everybody here for joining us tonight. All of my colleagues for making the time out taking the time to share updates and listen to feedback. Of course, Judge King, for your ongoing support and feedback on our progress. Joanne and Nora, for your partnership and leadership in making sure we are headed in the right direction. And of course, all of our riders. Again, as I mentioned earlier, our next meeting will be on December 11th, but please don't be a stranger between now and then. There'll be lots of opportunities to be engaged through RTAG and other events that we'll be hosting. I did see one hand pop up, and it's not too late if we want to take one more question. Otherwise, we can say goodnight now.
It looks like Debbie has a hand, and then there's one more question in the chat. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask Debbie to unmute.
Did it unmute?
We can hear you.
Okay. I mean, that's probably what happened with the other guy. I had to hit it like 6 times. I was gonna ask I think his name is Daniel, the guy that's with the T for operations, the bus training.
Dane, yes.
Dan, okay. Okay. Hello, Dan. This is Debbie. I have a question about when the bus driver stopped in the middle of the street instead of near the curb. Is he here?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay, 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 because one stopped and he stopped in the middle of the street. So I went out to the street and I'm standing there and he's looking at me and I'm looking at him. And because I have a cane and everything, I said, "Are you going to lower the thing?" He said, "You have to ask." I said, "I have to ask." I said, "You're not near the curb. There's no way for me to get up there." He told me he only lowered it if I asked, but he wasn't near the curb. So I'm trying to figure out, is that a new thing where you got to ask them to
No, it's not. No,
lower
it's
the
not.
bus?
If they're not able to pull in 6 to 12 inches from the curb, they have to stay out 4 feet, drop the kneeler and possibly drop the ramp if they do need it, or they can pull up to the next safest location. So that's why we implemented this training program. So all operators within 2 years would know exactly what to do. So
Yeah,
we
because
will
there was
spend-
no one at that bus stop. It wasn't blocked or anything, but he stopped in the middle of the street. And when I walked out there and I'm like, "Are you going to lower the bus? You didn't ask me to." And I'm like, that's a new one. I never heard that one before. And I'm just a little bit curious if something's changed.
Nothing's
That's all.
changed, and we're looking to change
Okay.
the attitude of the bus operator and make sure they accommodate all customers the way they're supposed to.
Okay, I was just a little confused there with that. And he's not the first
Okay.
one to do it, so that's why I'm asking.
That's why we have the
Thank you.
training. Completely understand. Yep.
So
Thank you.
hopefully when that happens, you report it to the T, making sure you get the operator, the location, the bus number, and any other information you have, so that the T can follow up with an investigation, because that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, well, I have like a couple of them out there I haven't heard from yet, so I don't know what's going on with that either. So, I don't know what to say. I haven't heard from them either. And a
Thanks,
lot of them
Debbie.
like to take off while you're standing in the middle of the aisle. And I have to say, you're supposed to wait till I sit down before you take off. A couple of times people had to catch me, and then they'll stop if I say something. Other than that, they just, as soon as I step on, they just take off.
Yeah,
But
so Debbie,
yeah, I'm glad you're doing the new training. So I'm hoping that helps correct some of the problems.
yeah, what you're describing is actually absolutely a violation of the training and the rules that are in place. So I hear you that you've got a couple complaints in already. My team will follow up tomorrow to make sure that you've gotten meaningful responses to those. But as the judge said, we would definitely encourage you to let us know about any incidents like the one you're describing. Because with the video cameras on our buses, we're able to fairly quickly verify if there's been a violation and work with Dane and others to make sure that the appropriate action is taken.
Yeah, I've had SWS call me before on stuff, and I know they do look at it, but it's just been kind of like, I don't know, slacking or something late.
All right, we'll
Okay, thank you, Laura.
Thank you,
Thank
Debbie.
you, Patrick.
Have a
And
great
thank
night.
you, Daniel.
All right, I believe one more question out there.
I see that Jarrett Shang has been raising their hand and putting it down. Jarrett, I'm more than happy to unmute you if you still have a question. Let me try to, I lost you in my queue here. It looks like I can't unmute them unless they've raised their hand. Jarrett, do you want to try one more time to raise your hand if you do have a question? And in the meantime, while Jared is figuring that out, there's one more that came in from the chat that I have seen, which is how about having the new MBTA manager in charge of liaising with municipalities, talk about enforcement of parking standing at bus stops. Blowing by a stop to the next one is not a good workaround. Also, I've never seen an MBTA police officer enforcing illegally occupying a bus stop.
So I believe the team that is the team on which that new manager sits is not with us this evening, but we will definitely relay this question. I will say though that one exciting or potentially exciting update is there are currently 2 draft pieces of legislation making their way through the legislature that include language that, if passed, would allow for the remote ticketing of bus stops, meaning we would be able to use cameras on our buses to take pictures of vehicles that were illegally parked in bus stops or illegally traveling in dedicated bus lanes. And those photos would result in the automatic ticketing. This would allow us to issue truly thousands of tickets over the course of a short amount of time and ensure that tickets were being issued in a fair and consistent way. So keep an ear out for more on that. If you are able to reach out to your representative to let them know why these bills would be valuable to you, that would be great.
All right, this is Sam. If I may add, I would say that, as you know, MBTA communities is comprised of 175 communities. Obviously, we do have MBTA police, but that's definitely not enough to enforce all these local parking regulations, or these actually should be the local law enforcement responsibility. We have been conveying those to the local communities, making sure that they enforce these parking laws. We certainly will continue to fight on your behalf, making sure that drivers obey all these parking rules.
Thank you, Sam. I believe there was one piece of that, if I could just take moderator's privilege, that perhaps Dane, you can just address or clarify, because Abby seems to be under the impression that we go to the next bus stop if a bus stop is blocked, but I don't believe that that's the policy unless it's changed. Can you just address?
Yeah, we definitely don't go to the next bus stop. We have to service the stop if someone wants to get off or on that bus. If it is blocked, they have to pull up to the next safest location, not necessarily the next bus stop, the next safest location. And like I said, they're trained. If the bus can't pull in 6 to 12 inches to the curb, they have to stay out 4 feet, drop the kneeler in the ramp. And if they still can't accommodate someone that way, they'll have to pull up to the next safest location, which is the next safest curb.
Thank you, Dane. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. All right. Jared, I believe that tech support is going to ask you to unmute now. If you do have a question, please feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask that question now. All right, it looks like Jarrett does not have a question, but Jared, if you do, please feel free to follow up with our department directly. We'd be more than happy to answer it or to direct it to the right place in case you would like to ask it in another way. Thank you.
All right, Safira, thank you so much. And with that, again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. And we will see you at the next meeting. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, let me join Laura in thanking you as well. The presentations were all excellent. And I'd like to also congratulate the plaintiffs on the receipt of the recent Thomas Hopkins Award from the Massachusetts Office of Disability, a very well-deserved award, certainly. thank you very much and look forward to seeing you all again in December, if not before. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Thank you.
evening.
Thank you.
Thanks all.